What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk. Crack a beer, cozy up. We're recording this one on Tuesday, July 2nd, and we're back in the away end to preview RIFC's upcoming home match versus Indy 11. Just a reminder, each episode of Tide Talk is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and click the like button on this video. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and if you listen on one of those, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. And if you're not already using the Club Collector app, click the link in this episode description to get on the site. Go enter the code Tide Talk, all one word, to get a free pack added to your collection. I'm your host, Matt, and tonight I'm joined by my good friend Ryan and Betz from the Cue the Smoke podcast to preview this upcoming matchup. Ryan, what's going on, man?
No, excited for Friday and Thursday too, 4th of July. Happy 4th to everybody listening, and to my fellow speakers here.
Absolutely. Betz, thanks for taking the time out to join us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about Cue the Smoke podcast, how you guys all got going, and what you guys do.
First of all, thank you guys for having me. I have been a supporter of the Indy 11 for about 4 years now, which is roughly about the same time that Cue the Smoke started up. The faces have changed a little bit, but the message is still the same. It's an Indy 11 podcast by the fans, for the fans. We've kind of blogged more during the off season when there's not as much to talk about. But we cover both the men's and women's side of things for the Indy 11, and it's always a good time.
Oh, that's awesome. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to join us. We've got our resident Welshman in the chat saying happy Treason Day, as he does not agree with the happy 4th of July sentiment, but that's neither here or there. We love the whole for the fans, by the fans. That's what we preach here at Tide Talk too. So again, thank you. We are getting a couple people in the chat, Michael, that you're a little muffled. So if you could just give it a little more bass in your voice when you talk, so they can hear you. We'll hear it out. But I think it'll get through there good enough. But let's dive into this one and get started. You guys got a nice podcast you talked about. It's for the fans. It's by the fans. Like I said, that's like we want. We're going to preview this upcoming match with Ryan, jumping in and asking you about, what's been going on so far with Indy 11.
Yeah, so I think Indy 11 has really had an interesting season, both on and off the pitch. So on the pitch, tough start to the year, losing 4 of your first 6, but then completely turned things around. Had won the previous 10 matches across all competitions before losing to Orange County in your last match. You also made a run to the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open Cup with a match against Atlanta next week, which is amazing. Obviously, off the pitch, some interesting stuff going on. End of April, it was announced by the mayor of Indy that they were looking to pursue an MLS club, put the stadium and kind of everything going on at risk a bit. I guess, just thinking about the season as a whole, how has it been going for you guys?
It's been very interesting.
I imagine.
It's been a fun one, though. Like you said, it was very rough to start the season. First 6 games just really didn't look good. We got that 1-0 win in the Open Cup against Chicago Fire 2, and since then, on the field, it's been really good. Off the field, there's still a lot of stuff they're dealing with. Hopefully that gets figured out, but there's a lot of things still up in the air with it, so it'll figure itself out eventually.
Yeah, and this is a little bit off the script, but with that change in the game against Chicago Fire 2 and kind of ongoing, was there any keys to what really turned the tides on the pitch? I didn't do that on purpose, I swear.
He just wanted to say Tide.
I think really it was the addition of the 2 Bens, Ben Afemu and Ben Mines from Miami. It kind of felt like when those 2 joined the team, there was a different level of play that kind of started getting worked in. Whether it was, the guys that were already here were saying, okay, these guys bought in so heavily to what Miami was doing, and now they're here buying into what Sean's doing, or if it was just the fact that they came together and they had already known each other, so their ability to play off of one another got everything else started. I think that was part of it. I think some of it was we made a change between the pipes from Yannick Odell to Hunter Salt, and that's really made a difference. But really kind of all legs of the team have found their way to get things going.
Right on. So, kind of, I know some of your answers will, maybe piggyback back to what's going on off the field in this, and then you've kind of looked at it when I sent it to you off air. But we do a segment here on Tide Talk called "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." So, if you could give us a good, a bad, and an ugly moment so far from your season, and like you said, it can be from on the pitch, it can be from off the pitch, any kind of combination works for us.
Well, I could do both. I've
Yeah,
got a good
absolutely.
and ugly for the season as a whole, and a good, bad, and ugly from all the things going on off the pitch. So we'll start with the fun
Awesome.
stuff first.
There you go.
On the field, the good has obviously been the run. 10 wins, 12 unbeaten, a trip to the quarterfinals of the Open Cup. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. If I had to pick a best moment from it, I think you guys would enjoy this. It was a 4-1 win at home over Hartford.
We have a theme in this podcast where people just come on and they kick the shit out of Hartford. It's really great. Good for everybody.
We've had quite a few away end guests that have picked up on that, and I can honestly say that that's totally organic. I have not fed anyone any of that lines. Ryan's an admin on our Twitter account too, so he sees the conversations. I've never given anyone those lines, but I appreciate you, Betz, for coming in here and just following suit.
It's always nice to talk a little bit about a rivalry,
Yeah.
As far as the bad, I would say it extends more than just the last game against Orange County, but the last couple of games. You could tell the loss or the draw was going to come at some point. It was just going to be more of a how does it happen? And I think that the game against Orange County matched it. It was something we kind of saw coming, and we just did not look good that game. The ugly, as you guys have mentioned, was the start of the season, specifically a 5-3 loss at Louisville, and then turn around the next game, a 4-2 loss at home to Charleston. That was the ugliest part of the season, where I know there was a lot of thoughts that it might be a little too early to jump the ship, but there were people thinking that already. Clearly, we got things turned around, and that's been a great thing to kind of watch happen. As far as the stadium goes and all the off the field stuff, the good would be when we announced last March, I think, that we had we have the site, we're ready to build. It obviously was torn down here in the past couple of months. The bad would be the increasing number of bodies that they found. So for anyone who doesn't know, Ursula Osmodier, the owner of the Indy 11, purchased what used to be the Diamond Chain Company downtown. Before the Diamond Chain Company, it was one of the city's first cemeteries that Diamond Chain bought the property.
Whoa.
And then on top of it. Yeah.
Holy shit! I hadn't read that.
I
That's
didn't
pretty
know
wild.
that either.
They hadn't done anything with any of the bodies that were there. Indy bought it. They started the progress of trying to get the stadium built, and the issues started to come with the amount of bodies that they were finding.
Is there like a body count on this?
I don't think there's an exact count.
Do you think it's higher or lower than the Huck Tua girl?
Jeez. Oh my God.
Sorry.
And that was one of the things that kind of started leading to the ugly, was the number was getting so high that the cost of getting them properly removed continued to increase. And then it all led to,
Right.
out of nowhere, Mayor Joe Hogsett announcing that they were looking to other places to try to bring an MLS team to the city. Since then, it's been a mess, and it continues to be a mess. But that would be the ugly part of that whole stadium drama.
That's pretty wild. I mean, like, so are we talking like unmarked graves, or like they fully didn't, they knew it was a cemetery but didn't know how big, I guess, or like I'm just like intrigued by this. This is insane.
Right. I'm not entirely sure. I do know a lot of the bodies now are unmarked because, again, Diamond Chain's been there for
Sure.
hundreds of years at this point.
And who knows what went on in like permit days back then, like hundreds
Right.
of years ago, like you said. I want to follow up with a question in the chat, kind of along that, and it's kind of a tough one. I'll kind of like bounce it around what people have been asking in the chat. William's a Sacramento supporter who joined us for the first home game. He does vlogs for them. He wants to know if Indy becomes an MLS team, would you see Indy 11 be folded like San Diego? Is that kind of the path that is predicted, or do you see the two teams kind of coexisting?
I think it kind of depends on how everything is done.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, at the beginning, when all this started happening, there were kind of four trains of thought. There was the good for everyone, the good for us, bad for them, the bad for us, good for them, and then the bad for everyone. The bad for everyone is stadium doesn't get built, MLS team doesn't come, and then Indy 11 ownership just walks away and we do fold without anything to replace it.
Sure. Lose.
The good for them, bad for us is a new stadium gets built, an MLS team comes in, and then Indy 11 folds. You can see where this goes. Obviously, the good for us would be the MLS doesn't come. Indy 11 stays as they are. Either the stadium gets built or we keep playing at Carroll Stadium. Either way, Indy 11 still a team. The best case scenario, obviously, would be both sides come together. The Indy 11 name goes into a pot, and we use it for whatever MLS team we have. There's supposed to be a Super League team for the women's side. If they were to ever get 11 parts built, that would be there. The academies will continue, and the Indy 11 name would continue to be built through the state as it has been right now. We don't really have an answer right now. We're still trying to figure out who the investors are for the MLS because there's reports that even the mayor doesn't know. So it's still up in the air. We don't really know where it's going. All we know is what the BYB statement has been, and effectively it's we are here to promote and grow the sport of soccer in the state of Indiana. Preferably, that would be behind the Indy 11 crest because that is what the BYB helped bring to Indianapolis. So it is a club that they support and they love. That's kind of been the statement is we want to continue to grow soccer, but we want to have a say in how things kind of get done, and we definitely want to be behind the crest that we helped to bring.
Sure. Are you a member of the BYB?
Yes.
All right, so kind of follow up with that, and this will be our last point on all the MLS talk, and then we'll move on to the matchup and actually.
I'm still stuck on the bodies, but keep going.
I know, like it brings me back to when Peter was digging a pool in Family Guy and found the Indian graveyard, and like Stewie went into the TV, but that's where my mind went. Scott wants to know, obviously we have to ask his take on the MLS team, which we've gotten going with. Would he support it? And so you mentioned the supporters group position and statements on it, that they're here to promote soccer in the area, and kind of what your position. You pretty much agree with that. You're in line with that as long as it's promoting soccer in the area, but you'd prefer it seen to help build the crest that you guys helped build.
Yeah. It would be very hard to get behind another club in the state of Indiana that's not Indy 11.
And then I think we have one of your friends in the chat too, Jason, saying, "Don't be so nice, Michael. Joe Hogsett / MLS is going to kill off Indy 11 whether it comes or not."
Well, that is kind of what everyone's thought process is. Again, there's some behind doors conversations that we don't know what is happening again. But my stance is it would be very, very hard to follow a team in the MLS if it's not Indy 11. Just because, I've got family who's been there since day one. And they've seen the club grow, and for the past 4 years I have fallen in love with this, not just sport, but team, and it would be hard to see a different team coming in to try to replace what has been here for 11 years at this point.
I think that's pretty well said.
Absolutely. So, Michael, another segment we do on the show is called RIFC in 3, and it's where we, after games, we reach out to the fans and try to get a 3-word summary of the match. So, could you give us a 3-word review of either Indy 11 season or like your Indy 11 support overall?
We'll go with the season because I've thought about this quite a lot. Interesting roller coaster ride.
I like that.
Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of the reasons why at the start. So
it reminds me of a roller coaster I went to in Branson. Starts off slow and then it stops. backs up a little bit, and all of a sudden it shoots out like a rocket. Then the season, a very slow start. You have the two massive losses to Charleston and Louisville that backed us up, and then all of a sudden we hit that Chicago game, and we've been running since. So those are the best 3 words to describe it.
I like that. That's pretty spot on.
Absolutely.
Next up, I know the Brickyard Battalion BYB, as you mentioned before, is a pretty well-known supporters group throughout the USL Championship community. What's the traveling support like for Indy 11? Do you know anyone that's making the trip to Rhode Island on Friday?
I do know a couple. Currently, the BYB is a little torn, just for the fact that the women play their first game of the playoffs Friday night up in Detroit. So we do have a lot of fans making the trip up to Hamtramck to support the ladies in their playoff push. But I do know there are a couple who are making the trip out there to Rhode Island to support the boys and try to come home with that 3 points.
That's pretty cool. I will say that I don't know if it's going to happen in August on the return fixture, but I went to Indy when I was in college, and it's one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. It's just a really cool vibe. You can walk to everything. So, how far exactly is where you guys play? From the downtown area.
So if you've been to Indianapolis, did you ever make it over to IUPUI?
Not that far out. No, I actually stayed right near where the Pacers play. Went to a Pacers game while I was there.
Okay, so back when it was Bankers still.
Yep.
Not Gamblers.
Yeah, I needed the bank because I was away and I had an iPhone on my lap that buzzed off right and nosedived into a cup of beer and lost it away on the trip. It's fucking terrible.
But no, it's depending on who you ask. It's within walking distance of downtown.
Okay.
I would prefer either like to bike or car just because I don't like walking that much. But it's close enough to downtown that we have a lot of people who go out to like a bar or something pregame,
Sure.
get a couple drinks and get some food in, then show up to tailgate or whatever. Yeah, it's not super far away, but it's a little bit farther than what the new stadium would be if it was get built.
Gotcha. Jason says he was coming, but then the Open Cup on Tuesday was scheduled at the same time, so he chose the Open Cup. I'm sorry. Would have been nice to meet you, Jason. And I will throw it out there if anyone's listening that is an Indy 11 fan and you are making the trip, find the Defiance. That's our supporters group tailgate at Burn Stadium inside of Bryant. There's a big brick building. If you're looking at the stadium to the left, it's usually right on the edge there. There's tents and flags. Come see myself and Ryan. We'll hook you up some Tide Talk stickers, and we'll give some for Betz. Send some to Betz for joining us. But it's a very welcoming tailgate. All are welcome. You can join us on the march in. It's a really good time. So it's gonna be fireworks after the game. So it should be a really good atmosphere in for this one. So figured I'd touch on all of that while we were covering support.
Totally. Yeah, so as we start to turn our attention to the game this weekend, Michael, who are some players to watch for the Indy 11 if you had to maybe go to 3?
Oh, let's see. There's two kind of obvious ones that have really kind of been my MVPs of the season. One of them is obviously Aiden Stanley. You know, having as many assists as he's had from his crosses and his corners, that's always a guy to look out for, especially here as of late. The other guy who maybe doesn't get as much credit because he really is kind of just been our penalty guy, but Jack Blake has also been maybe not the most scoring player on the team, but he definitely helps orchestrate the offense, and he's definitely back on defense when we need him. The other player, it's hard to decide between. Connor Salt's obviously been amazing in goal. I think I got to go with Benafemu. He has really kind of stepped into his own since finding the starting role. He's got a couple goals in. He is very, very good once the ball gets into our box defensively of getting it out and stopping any play. So I'd say Stanley, Blake, and Ofemu are kind of my 3 guys that I normally try to watch out for because I know they're going to have a great night.
Right on. And kind of to jump on the back of that, our friend Nate, who if you watch the broadcast and if you hear the RIFC chant, Nate's the guy yelling RI the whole match till his lungs collapse. But I know this is dependent on who starts, but who's a super sub or a real impact player that you guys can or will bring off the bench?
Like you said, it kind of depends on who starts and who doesn't. Normally, the kind of three guys I've seen come in recently from substitutions are Ben Mines, Tyler Gibson, and Elliot Collier. I would say normally Tyler Gibson is kind of the guy that, like, hey, he's going to step up. He's really going to lead the team in the midfield, help orchestrate some balls. But Elliot Collier's kind of been one of those guys where you don't expect much, and then all of a sudden he's got a goal, or he's got shots on goal that helps create for someone else. So one of those two guys has really been kind of the super sub, if you'd call it that, that has really kind of pushed the team farther into getting those fresh legs and getting some points.
Nice.
That's perfect. So as we look to the match, and everyone in the chat, if you could start to get your score predictions in the chat, let's start to see those. But Michael, if let's say Indy were to win, what do you think the keys to that would be? And if Rhode Island FC were to win, what do you think some of the keys would be there?
The biggest key for Indy would be finish your chances. Probably the same thing that I could have said last night watching the U.S. men's national team game. Finish your chances. We've seen a lot over the past 3 or 4 games where the play hasn't necessarily been the best. That we're still creating chances, but the chances just aren't finished. You know, we get a goal or two, but there's a lot left on the table. I think if there's just a couple more chances that are created that find the back of the net, we'll be going. As far as what would go wrong for us if Rhode Island were to win, it would be chances not being finished and a lack of communication in the box. I feel like a lot of times the issue has been recently this year, there was an attack and our defense isn't necessarily ready for it. And I think that might have been some of the problem against Orange County is too much time was given, not enough men up, and the ball squeaks through.
All right, so let's hop to the chat. It'll give you guys time to stew on your score predictions. So we always end with that big finish where you predict the scores. But we have Tim in the chat, Tim McDuff with 3-1. We've got Matt Hands 2-1 RIFC. Tyler's got 1-1. Draw Kings back in action. We've got Tim Sheldon with 2-1 RIFC. Scott's got 3-1 RIFC. I've never seen this much positivity in the chat. This is pretty wild going
now
forward.
I'm nervous.
Sarah's got 2-2. Hashtag Draw Kings back. So does anyone want to go first on theirs? Do you want me to go first? How do you want to tackle this one?
Why don't you go first? I always go
All
first.
Right, I'll go first. We'll mix it up a little bit. In kind of looking at your guys' latest run of form, 2-1 loss, 2-1 win, a 1-0 loss, a 1-0 win, and a 0-1 loss. Averaging 1 goal in the last 5 games. The good thing for you guys, like you mentioned, is your defense not giving up a lot of goals as well. If this game had been 3 weeks ago, I think I would have predicted a 0-0 draw. But the way that RIFC's offensive firepower has kind of come along and gotten going, and Ryan will tell you, and anyone that listens in the chat will tell you, and we've got a few more, so I'll go to that and delay and build up the
Filibuster.
Jason's got 2-1 Indy, hopefully, so the Indy 11 fan there, and our guy Nate Ski's got 2-1, and that's where I've settled. I've settled on a 2-1 RIFC victory, and I, like Ryan will tell you, people in the chat will tell you, Betz, I am always want to predict a draw. I was getting hot for a while with all those draws in here. Or I would predict the RFC loss. So we'll see what happens as I'm going to go with the 2-1 win for the boys in blue at home. I think this could actually also just end up completely off script and just being a really high scoring affair on both ends. I'm going to throw that out there as like a second line, as like, you know, both teams kind of throw caution to the wind. And we see
2 cracks at this. Come on.
We see. I think there's a reality where we could see a shit ton of goals, but I could also see this being a 2-1 tightly contested affair. Maybe a set piece makes the difference for either team. And in my pick, I'm going to go with a 2-1 and Rhode Island getting the win for that one. So, how about you, Betz? What do you got?
This is the part I dread the most about every podcast I go on is when I'm asked, "Hey, what are your thoughts on a final score of the game?" I'm horrible.
If it makes you feel better, I'm wrong every time. So
that seems to be how I end up.
I do okay with the result, but the numbers are just nowhere near close.
See, last time of this, like, oh, we're playing Orange County. We've been on a roll. 1 or 2-0. That would be an expectation. Well, it was 1-0, but not the way
You weren't that
we
far
needed
off.
to go. Matt, I do think that 2-1 expectation is kind of there. Offensively, we really haven't been clicking, but defensively, we're still there.
Right.
So
That's the
don't
part that worries me.
necessarily-
That's the part where I think it could go close.
That's why I think this will be a close one. And then looking at it, 8 points at home for Rhode Island. Indy, on the other hand, 16 points on the road. For some reason, we play better away from home than we do at home. Not sure why.
Do you think it's a kit curse? Is one kit better than the other? That's
It's possible.
all right.
It's very possible, but also I think it's more we want they want to return home to the players or to the fans with some points, get back home, start playing. I think a lot of it's been kind of more draws at home than losses outside of the big Charleston one, which we don't have to talk about. I think 2-1 in favor of, I would say, the boys in blue, but you obviously referred to Rhode Island as that. So I think Indy comes away with a 2-1 win.
Right.
And like you said, I think it truly is a set piece that normally will send it. Most likely probably a corner from either Cam Lindley or Aiden Stanley that finishes off.
All right. Well, I'll see you that, and I'll raise you with JJ Williams.
All right, so for me, I think this really all depends on which Rhode Island FC shows up. Is the Rhode Island FC of the early in the year? If anyone listened to the or watched the show last week, we went through a ton of stats of like kind of how we've shifted a bit over the past few weeks. And what I noticed when I was going through Indy 11 is you guys actually play a lot like the way that we have been playing over the past few weeks. Much more direct. You're not like a huge fan of possession, but you guys are very like resolute around the box. Not a ton of chances created, but not a ton of chances given up. So. Yeah, I think it's you haven't given up more than 1 goal against since April 13th in all competitions. You average 1.38 goals against per match. We average 1.44. You guys score 1.69 per match. We score 1.31. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to save the fireworks for after the match. This one should be a pretty low scoring affair. I really think this is going to come down to the wings and for us shutting down Stanley, like you mentioned. He's got a wicked cross. You guys are second in crosses in the league, which is crazy. Third in cutbacks. So I think us winning that battle, because our 2 wingbacks are also very positive, very bright. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that nets out all game. However, looking at Indy 11, you guys are pretty vulnerable to counters and set pieces, it seems, where 21st in expected goals against on counters, 18th on set pieces. So I do see this as a 1-0 Rhode Island FC win on some kind of set piece, whether it's a corner or a set piece. Yeah, maybe the long layoff between your last game, kind of stewing on that loss. One eye on Atlanta on Tuesday. You haven't been playing amazingly so far, so maybe we can kind of be opportunistic and get a 1-0 victory.
Jason likes your statistical breakdown. Says fair play. So
Jason, if you want to check out the last episode, I did slides. So
I was gonna plug that on you now, Ryan. I was gonna say, Jason, if you want to check out the post match, he'll probably come with slides and all different breakdowns. So make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Speaking of fireworks,
oh, there they go. They're starting up. My neighborhood is getting loud anyway too. But come check out the post match breakdown if you are a Cue the Smoke fan or an Indy 11 fan that's just checking this out. We'd love to have you. Love to have your thoughts in the post match anyway as well. But that's before we get you out of here. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to share before we sign off?
This should be interesting, not just because it's the first time we've ever played you guys, but because you turn around and about a month later, you guys are down here.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see first how this one goes and then how that one goes, just because it's like we just saw each other a month ago. Are the teams completely the same? Are we on the same streak? What's going on?
Didn't work too well for Louisville.
I'd say that was the really interesting because Louisville was the first team we played home and away, and it was a really tight turnaround too. So that was obviously the game was wild, but it was a fascinating one to talk about with
Sure.
Handsome John from 24-Hour Purple People. He was great. So it was fun to be like catch up with him and see how the team's been going. Easy for him to talk about Louisville, obviously.
I really appreciate your team beating them 5-2 though. That was good to feel.
He actually sent us a very nice message on Twitter after, even though some of our fans were not so nice towards Louisville fans on Twitter. But Handsome John sent the love to us, and we definitely appreciated that. That's what's cool about doing these. You know, we interact with someone for a half an hour or so on the podcast. We follow each other on Twitter, and then Garrett from the Detroit City Pod reaches out all the time about like, hey, who should I talk to for this one, or talking about random games. So that's why I love doing these. I love learning about the teams. Betz, like you said, it's our first year in the league, so our listeners want to learn more about who we're playing. They want to learn more about what's going on behind the scenes. So that's why we definitely appreciate you coming out and joining and taking the time with us.
So it's so easy when you're Louisville and you can just give points away and it's fine. So
yeah, maybe they should start giving a little bit more points away. Then we can start talking.
There you go.
Handsome John, if you're listening, take it under consideration, please.
Ryan, we'll kick it to you for your grand finale before the grand finale in your neighborhood goes off.
So I'm just gonna stick my mic out the window.
You could just play America the Beautiful a la Sandlot as you soliloquy here.
No, I'm really excited. Hope everyone has an amazing 4th and hope everyone brings it on Friday for the game. Definitely should be an amazing atmosphere. The atmosphere last time, first home win ever, was electric, and that was a Wednesday night. So hopefully Friday night, day after the 4th of July, can be an amazing atmosphere for the boys, and hopefully we have something to celebrate after.
All right, on. Jason says in the chat, come out to Indy and pay us a visit. Michael and I will be the Brickyard Battalion Capo stand. Look for us with my Bluey 2 poles. Is it like Bluey the cartoon? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my God! So I've got 2 little guys. I'm a huge Bluey fan, so I do like that.
Bluey and Muffin, maybe.
Oh, the gray one?
No, red one.
Oh, all right, bingo.
He does have a muffin one though.
Muffin's a little shit. Muffin's a shit, so that's a good one to have.
Yeah, you could guess what that one does. There's no words on it, just an action that he normally displays towards the rats.
Oh, yes. I'm gonna have to take the boys to Indy. That would be cool. But like Tyler says, we'll talk to you next month, Michael. Thanks for everyone who joined us in the chat. If you could please take a second, click the thumbs up button on this video. Definitely really appreciate it. Jason did add that one is Bluey and Bingo yelling hooray. Muffin is flipping everyone off. I got to see that. Jason, I'm at MattK401 on Twitter. If you have any pictures or videos, please tag me so I can see that. I'd really appreciate that. So I can show the boys. My 6-year-old son comes to all the games and screams and yells at the ref, as Ryan can attest to. Like it's pretty epic. So I would show that to him, and he would definitely appreciate it. But that'll about wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. Please click that link in the episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, and for Betz from Cue the Smoke and my good friend Ryan, thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.